So here's the thing that no one wants you to know. Excellent service can save a bad meal, but an excellent meal can be ruined by bad service. We think it's time that the front of the house got the spotlight they deserve. Welcome to Dine Dish, where the business of dining meets the art of hospitality. Welcome, everybody. We are back for another episode of Dine and Dish. And today's show, we're taking it back to the beginning of what it takes to actually build a restaurant. So this year we talked about we're going to go over different tips and different suggestions for how to open a restaurant from start. So we talked leases on our last show. We've talked location. Now we're going to talk how do you build it? Because that's a big one and there's a lot of hidden costs. And I brought a very good friend on today to discuss different tips and tricks to building the best restaurant. So let me introduce him and we'll get him on the show and we'll get started. But Steve DiPietro is a very good friend of both Gennaro and I. He's actually also helped us build one of our Vivi's locations. So we've worked together on other projects. And he's a managing partner with Madison Construction, and he's here with me today. Steve, you on the line?
I'm on the line, Michelle. How are you?
I'm great.
Good.
Thank you for coming on. This is
Thanks
fun.
for having
Different.
me. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, a little bit different from the gym to working out to building restaurants
Exactly.
to TV shows to podcasts to spinning music. You do it all.
I do it all.
The man with many hats,
That's
huh?
it. Yes.
Yeah. So let's kind of jump right into this whole construction restaurant thing because, when you're building a restaurant, there's so many details that go into it that people really don't even know. You talk about expectations, you talk about budgets, misconceptions, all the different things that are involved. But before we get into the step by step of what goes into building a restaurant, there's so many things that are costly that a lot of restaurateurs, and it could be anybody, it could be regular operators that don't really know. So, what do you think from just to get off the topic, what do you think the number one mistake that you see happens with owners before construction even begins?
I would say for me, assuming that they know what the cost is going to be. So budgeting, I would say, because sometimes, every project is different. In every situation, you're going to run into different problems. And I think they base, if they own more than one restaurant, they base pricing off of, what they spent the last time. And then I just feel like it's always evolving. Everything's changing. Construction cost is always going up. Some things are going down. We're getting into that area where lumber and stuff like that's moving in the other direction. But for the most part, I just feel like ever since COVID, I feel like it's really hard to just nail down an exact number, to be honest with you. So I would say assuming going into a project that you assume a certain cost. So if to build out, you assume, let's just say you assume it's going to be 400,000, and next thing you know, you get 3 bids at over 6.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll get into that whole bidding process in just a couple minutes, but I have to say, let's go back to talk about what you just said.
Yeah.
The number one mistake a lot of restaurateurs don't realize is the budget. And if we get my husband on the phone and my partner, Gennaro, will always say, yeah, budget. Michelle's always over budget. I mean, when we did Tuscan Prime, we were way over budget, but budget is definitely one of the big ones. And you don't realize, and when we get into talking about design firm versus contractors and what truly goes into the budget, you have to talk realistic versus wish list items because
exactly
everybody always is about
it's the needs and the wants of your job. You know what I mean? There's certain things you need to run a business, and there's certain things that you want in your project.
Well, there's needs and wants in everything, personally, business, building restaurants.
Yeah.
But when do you think is a good time to actually bring a GC in? Because a lot of times, I know when we build restaurants, we bring somebody in right away to do inspections, right? They want to look at HVAC, grease trap, the electrical box,
Sure.
plumbing. I mean, especially if it's second gen, you want to make sure that obviously everything's working. But what do you feel is the perfect time to actually bring in your general contractor into the
I would
process?
say I mean, I would say day one before you even get anything started. I would even say prior to, and some people could disagree with me, but I really think prior to even having an architect doing your layout and your build out, there's just certain things that, you're never going to be prepared for, you know?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
just think from day one, when you go into a project, before you sign the lease, I would bring, I think that you always want to have a contractor that you're comfortable with, but I would bring your GC or somebody that you work with a lot on day one to bring them in on the project so you know what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I agree 100%. I mean, not only do you bring your general contractor in, but there's so many different things that you can look at. There's so many different moving parts you don't realize. And then not only that, but your general contractor is going to catch things that a layperson might not see. I mean, I'm a restaurateur. We built a lot of restaurants.
Sure.
I mean, now we have the experience and we know what to look for. But when you first get into this and you're building a restaurant, you might not know to look for, like on our last show we talk about scrubbers, because if you have apartments above, and where a contractor is going to say, hey, you might think about this, so and then you get into planning for inspections and permits and approvals, which, I mean, permits could take forever if they're
Nightmare.
not done the right way,
It's not.
right?
It's nightmare. Even when it's done the right way, it's a nightmare. I would say the biggest problem with permitting is that you never have the same inspector.
Yeah. We know that,
Yeah,
right?
the inspector is changing day to day. You know,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, and it goes, and you know what, county to county there's so many different
oh my God, yeah,
changes.
it's we're on projects now in Virginia, from Arlington County to Fairfax County to Vienna, the city of Vienna. It's just there's so much it's so different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
This
you talk county to county. I mean, what do you feel in terms of budget realism versus timeline expectations? Because you go into this project, I mean, we do it all the time. We're like, "Oh, we're going to be open by spring." And even though you plan to open by spring, then you open in September
Yeah.
because, I mean, you know how it is. There's so many different things. So, how do you set that true timeline expectation, and you plan for inspections and permits and approvals? I mean, what would your tip or suggestion be for that?
I mean, I think you go into I think a contractor goes into any project knowing that this project should be, if in a perfect world, you're going to be 4 months. But I can't tell you how many, especially in white box situations, I can't tell you how many times we've gone in and what's supposed to be there is not there, and then you got to go back and make changes to the architectural plans to get it approved through the county that you're already
Yeah.
starting on the project. So it's just, I think just having a realistic, timeline is really hard to, we all can guess from experience what it's going to take, but sometimes
Oh,
there's just
for
things
sure.
there's things that you never know what you're going to come across, you know. So
Yeah.
and ultimately, the contractor's on the hook for it, but ultimately, inspections go bad or something gets changed and it keeps pushing the timeline back, or there's some small changes that the owner of the building wants because they're walking through now that the walls are up and they feel like the flow is not right for them and they got to add this and that and make changes. So it's just things like that.
Yeah. You mentioned white box.
Yeah.
So, for a lot of the listeners, they might not know a lot of the lingo of white box,
Yeah.
vanilla shell. Can you just
So,
describe that a little bit?
so a
Explain.
white box or a vanilla shell is basically a storefront or whatever you're building that you're working in is just four walls, basically, nothing inside. Sometimes in a white box you'll have a bathroom or plumbing in the back area of the building.
Yeah.
So basically, a vanilla white box is basically what we call it in the industry, but it's basically just four walls in an open
Yeah.
room. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've done many different types of restaurants, from cold dark shells where it's just like concrete. They give you they give
Yeah.
you just an open space with,
Sure.
you know, the roof and the concrete floor. And then we've done warm vanilla shell spaces like you're talking about, where at least you have some walls and
Right.
you have some plumbing and you have some electric to the space. But how do you really come up with that budget? I mean, when you go out to look at a space, and just like you did with Gennaro when we built
Yeah.
VPs, how do you truly come up with a budget? And when you do create this budget, how much more contingency money should somebody think about to have kind of on the side? Because I mean, everybody's always a little bit over budget. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm technically always over budget,
Right.
but
Yeah.
but what would your
Or
suggestion
at
be for
least the Gennaro's fact, right?
that? He always says, it's funny, every restaurant we go to build, every full service restaurant, I'll say, oh my God, we got to do this, we got to do that, we have a budget. And then he'll be like, this is the budget.
Yeah.
And then we sit down and I'm like, yeah, but I really want this. And he's like, this is the budget. I can't tell you how much over budget we went with Tuscan Brine, but I know at the end we were probably almost double, which I don't even want to say to everybody listening, but we definitely went over budget.
I think in certain situations, I think mainly, when you're trying to keep a budget, I mean, when we go in and bid out a job, we basically are like, we have a set of plans that we're working off of. So
Right.
on the plans describe, tell us what we're going to do, basically. But with that being said, I don't care. I've worked with 100 architects and they never get it right because they're drawing it on paper. So
Don't we know it?
yeah,
You know what? I can't even tell you how many times you get an architect and they're like, in a perfect world,
yeah,
it should look like this.
right.
I've had architects that don't even go out to the space and do
Well,
a site visit and think they're just going to do drawings based on the plans that they're given by a landlord. We get the plans and then we give it to the contractor, and the contractor's like, that wall's not even there,
yeah.
because they don't go out and do site visits.
Well, and I mean, let's face it. It's just that's probably the biggest problem is they get the overall, like they'll get this. Whoever owns the building will send them out a PDF of what the building has in it right then and there. If it's a second gen space, like we're doing a project in Vienna, and it's a
Mhm.
second gen space, and basically the architect goes in and designs the space,
Mhm.
and we get into that space, and it's like half the stuff he's leaving in that second gen building, you can't leave because the drywall is molded 2 feet up all the way across the bottom of the drywall. So you don't want to leave that for the next person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have to.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Sometimes, they say in the restaurant world, everybody always looks for these second generation spaces, but they're great from an overall having the bones, they say, right?
Yeah,
Because you have the ductwork, you have
right.
the plumbing, you have the electrical, you have the hood or the venting, but you never know what you're going to get into. When we built Lorton, I'll never forget Squisito Lorton, actually, even Oakton, you start opening walls and you start opening floors, and it's almost like a domino effect.
Yeah.
You look at one thing and then it's another and then
It's a
another,
total
because you don't
time.
realize what you're going to get into,
It's a
especially
total
if it's been
domino effect.
operating,
It is.
15 years,
It's
right?
well, and the other thing is, how long was that second gen space being used?
Right.
How long was the hood being run? Was it running properly? Was the ductwork in there uh, all garbage and have full of gunk and dust?
Yeah.
And you never know
Was
what
it
to.
maintained?
Yeah, you never know what to get into. But with that being said, I would say um, as far as budget, having a contingency, I would always say go with 10%. I mean, that's kind of the, um,
Like a rule of thumb.
it
So when you
is
say
even
10%, you're saying 10% over the actual budget. So if
that's
you
correct.
if you give the restaurateur or whoever is building the space,
Yeah,
if you give them a budget, you're saying have at least another 10% over the total number on the side, just as backup.
yeah. Well, and here's the other thing: we did a car wash, and they did a construction loan for the car wash, and the build out was like $2.5 million, and the bank forced them to do 250,000. They forced them to do 20%
Wow.
contingency. And with that being said, I'll give you a nightmare situation. With that being said, that they had to go, they ended up spending 280,000.
Wow.
So they had 250. They had to put another 30,000 out of their pocket because of situational things. Like the building was not they did some probes where the building was supposed to go, and they missed underneath of the building was a 12-foot wide road that was 18 inches thick.
Yeah. Now you're getting into technical
Yeah.
terms. I'm a restaurant
Yeah.
person. Now you're talking roads and concrete.
Well, I'm just telling you, like, nobody expected that in the
Yeah.
budget. Nobody saw, none of us could foresee that
Right.
until you put a shovel on the ground and you get 6 inches in the ground, and now all of a sudden you're hitting concrete,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's
Well,
just,
you mentioned architect.
yeah.
So, before you get into design and layout, what okay, just put it this way, architect versus design build. Which do you like working with better? Do you go with an architect or do you go with a full design build firm?
Well, I prefer architect. Architect gets you the space on paper, right?
Hmm.
But always keep this in mind, Michelle. Keep this in mind that we architects build it on paper, contractors build it. We
Right.
know what's going to work and what's not going to work. You know what I mean? There's certain people that are better. I've done so many restaurants and nightclubs and fit out stuff like that I know. You know, I have that eye that maybe you would have as an owner.
Hmm. Right.
You know what I mean? Because I'm building it, but looking at it as an owner, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And that's important. And,
yeah,
that goes back to, when you choose your contractor, it's not just your architect design build, but you need to make sure you choose the right general contractor for your project that has restaurant experience, that's worked on kitchen, that understands kitchen workflow, that's
absolutely,
worked with health departments and know what challenges they're going to have. Or,
absolutely,
when you put the hood up or you put your Ansel system in or sprinklers, all these individual parts that are so integral, that are so important to your business, that can hold up so many permits and approvals and delay your opening. So it's really important to also talk to the right general contractor, not just hire somebody that
well,
builds houses.
I feel like a lot of times, I would say this 9 times out of 10, Michelle, that owners of restaurants or people that are opening up restaurants are going with the budget contractor.
Yeah.
And the
Which
problem
is
with,
not always the way to go, because
well,
cheaper doesn't mean better,
the problem with the budget contractor is if I'm bidding a job at 600,000 and somebody's bidding it at 400,000, something's not right. You know what I mean? Something's not right in there. Either
Yeah.
I'm either I'm telling you turnkey and they're telling you the basic numbers to get in, if that makes
Right.
sense. You know what I'm
Of
saying?
course.
A lot of
Well,
contractors will sell that low number to get in on the job, but for me, as from experience, that's nothing but a headache.
yeah.
Because, like
So
I
what
said,
would you say when restaurateurs are interviewing contractors?
yeah.
What would you mentioned budget. I mean, obviously that's a huge red flag. What other red flags would you say to look for? Cuz obviously you have to hire smart. I mean,
Well,
that's with anything.
the
So what
most
would you
important thing I think for any restaurant owner is to be 100% in with whoever the contractor that they choose. You cannot be, oh, this guy's price is really good, but I don't know, because I always say this, building a project is like a marriage. It's like at the beginning, everybody's in the honeymoon stage. We're getting the project going. Somewhere in the middle, timelines are not working out properly, and everybody's stressed to get open, and everybody's got a lot of pressure on both sides have a lot of pressure, so it's no longer honeymoon stage, and then once you
Right.
get open, we love each other again. You know what I'm saying? And I can't tell you, I've done this with houses, I've done this with restaurants. It's just part of the process. And
Yeah.
if you can't be in a marriage with your contractor, it's going to be a nightmare.
Yeah.
you know
So what other items should owners look for when choosing a GC? So do you have any, I mean, you're going in, you're bidding the job, and obviously everybody says get three bids, but what should they look for? I mean, do they look for a contractor that does it all, or do they look for contractors, I'm not just talking numbers and
Yeah.
budget, or do they look for contractors that allow you to bring in your own subs. I've seen restaurants built so many different ways.
Yeah.
So, what would you think is the best? Like you said, it is a marriage, so it's really important to have open communication. What would you think is the best way to get this done, and have the right partner?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, I think I still go back to just, you know, being 100% in with your contractor, meaning, I guess
So basically having the GC do it all.
yeah,
So like
exactly.
he's
Well,
the quarterback or he's the coach of the project,
you
right?
gotta have
So
you gotta have the GC as the quarterback of the project. You have to. If you There's a lot, like you said, Michelle. There's 100 ways to do this, you know, and every way sometimes it works out well and sometimes it doesn't. When
yeah,
you when a GC has their own contractors, they're in control of the project 100%. When the GC is using the restaurant's contractor, plumber, or this guy or that guy, it's out of control. Meaning, I can't go, if you send me a plumber and say, this guy's going to do it for 30K and your guy's 50K, so he's going to save us 20K. But in the long run, he's costing us money because he's not there every day because he's only charging you 30K.
yeah.
You know what
And
I mean?
maybe he's delaying your project. So that
Exactly.
delays your opening and
So
it delays
So now I'm
your
in,
revenue.
and now I'm in delay with you because of your contractor. And I can't say, well, hey, you sent me this guy, because that's not the way it works. I'm the contractor, but I can only push somebody that I
So much.
don't
Yeah.
know so hard.
Yeah. So here's a big one. Let's talk design and layout and flow. Because I mean, obviously, design's my thing. I love it.
Yeah.
That's my wheelhouse. And you get so many different restaurateurs out there that they get on TikTok, they get on Instagram, and they want to build things that they see based on Instagram worthy designs. However, we have to talk operational efficiency, right?
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about, the whole Instagram worthy design versus operational efficiency and what your suggestions are, and how do you get around that if you have that operator that's really pushing for more um, areas that you think might not work.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the biggest thing is with restaurants is, for you guys, it's all about flow, right? Would you say that's right? Like,
Oh yeah,
for,
absolutely. I
for
mean, it's
you, it's
yeah.
all
I
about
mean, from
flow.
kitchen,
Yeah.
from the front door, the kitchen, the food coming out of the kitchen. Absolutely, it's got to be designed the right way, or a restaurant's not going to work.
Well, I also feel like, if you're bringing in a chef, for instance, the chef wants a bigger kitchen. But to me, I don't think that that's smart. I feel like the smaller kitchen, that thing flows better. Everything's right there, moving the pieces, setting it up on the getting the food out quicker. You know what I'm saying? The runners are moving the food.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of times I see when somebody's bringing in their cook or their chef, that they're always pushing for a bigger kitchen or more equipment. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess it depends whether you're doing full service or fast casual too.
Right.
So when you're talking fast casual, I mean, today it's all about smaller spaces and higher volume. So,
Absolutely.
back in the day when we started Squisito, it was like, oh, we want 3,000 square feet. We want to have a lot of seats. We want the balance of a big kitchen, the open kitchen, the seat. Today, since COVID changed the world. I mean, every show that I do, we talk COVID, and you actually brought up something earlier when you said lumber. Okay, I have to tell you a funny story. Lumber went up after COVID. You would have thought that the trees were made of gold. I had
Right.
a neighbor in at our beach house in Margate, and he wound up buying himself a beach house based on the increase in lumber because he sold wood. That's what he did.
Right.
And it went up, I think, 200 to 300%. I mean, you would think obviously with COVID everything goes up because it's tough, but wood, I mean, what was
Mich-
happening with lumber was ridiculous. So
Michelle,
you are right.
plywood, when I did that car wash, it was during COVID. Plywood, when we bid the job, was before COVID. Plywood was $28 a sheet, right? When we got into the project plywood was $67 a sheet. Now, how does
Ridiculous.
plywood change that much?
I was going to say, how did that piece of wood change with COVID? I mean, did it get COVID? I mean, what? It's
The
the same
problem
wood.
is there's so many. We still talk about this. In 2018, I built a house. Let's just say it was a 4,000 square foot house. The material was like, for the whole framing package was about $48,000. Okay, I built the same house in 2025, and it was $127,000.
Isn't that crazy? But
How is
what
that?
changed in the wood? Did the wood
How is
get
it
infused with
possible? What did
gold?
they do? How? What I want to know is how they were selling plywood and material that cheap.
Yeah.
How were they making a living then? Right?
So going back to your comment about the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yes, in full service, you are absolutely right. Chefs love bigger and better because they want these beautiful kitchens and you want the back line. And I get it because when you have a busy restaurant and you have a lot of seats and you're in 10,000 square feet and you have 300 and some people and then you have catering and you have a back line, obviously the kitchen is the heart. So it's so important that the food comes out. You don't want to delay it because the kitchens are getting in the weeds because everybody's on top of each other. So I get that. But fast casual these days, it's like I said earlier, everybody wants smaller. Like in Vivi's, all of our Vivi stores, we're doing 1,000 square feet, 900 square feet. We're getting ready to do a store in Hoboken. It's like 890 square feet.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
you want to maximize an effective and efficient kitchen. So it's so important that every space is designed for like proper workflow and a balance between your front, which is your line, your cashiers, and the back. And in these fast casual settings, the back is the whole restaurant. A lot of these little spaces don't even have a front. That it's all carry out, take out, and it's really quick.
Well,
So it's
do you see that? I think that it's this generation, right? Of like, I feel like the I feel like a smaller space is better because you're in and out. I feel like
yeah,
everything is in and out, and with this younger generation, I feel like they just want to grab it and go. They don't want to sit down. I remember going to the mall and getting a slice of pizza and sitting at the table and eating your pizza. You know,
yeah,
and
yeah. Everything is quick these
now
days.
now
Everybody's in
my
a
son
rush.
is running to Vivi's to get chicken, right? And he's eating it in his car on the way to the gym or wherever he's. I'm like, I don't understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
No, I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. I mean, everybody is about quick and efficient, and they don't want to sit and dine unless they're going out. They want to, you know, they're going out to a full service restaurant. They're sitting down to have a drink, or it's date night, or it's
right,
a special occasion. I mean, I agree with you 100%. Fast casual is quick and it's about efficiency. They want to get in and get out. And that's why these spaces, and I'm going to tell you the other reason, talking from the landlord side and the operator side, real estate is so expensive these days. Your dollar per square foot to get a lease, especially in city stores, even in Hoboken, you're paying $130 a square foot versus down here in a residential area, whatever, in Maryland,
yeah,
you're paying $50 a square foot.
wow, yeah,
So to get into these high volume locations, I mean, you're not going to spend 30 grand a month for rent for a little, chicken place. So you have to balance out, okay, well, let me get the best space on the best street, location, location, location with foot traffic, be able to do the numbers you need to do, but you want to have that 8 to 10% rent occupancy number. So this way your profits are balanced and you have, your books look good. So it's that scale,
yeah.
the scale you always look at.
Well,
Okay, how do you build for the right number? You have the right budget. How do you make the store produce the numbers it needs to do so this way you're profitable and you stay open?
well, I think you nailed it. I think location, location, location is the biggest,
Yeah.
um, especially with knowing people that. I had a buddy of mine that owned a cheesesteak place and he put it in Tyson's Corner Mall and
Yeah.
he paid, I think he was paying them $1 million a year.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I was
Food
like,
courts are the most expensive and they give you short leases. They're
and,
usually
and
3
I
to
was
5
like,
years.
how do you do that? He said, it doesn't matter. It's when you're selling 800 cheesesteaks a day,
Yep.
you know what I mean? It's all about the number.
Yeah.
You know what I
It's
mean?
always about the
Yeah.
numbers. Numbers, numbers,
So,
numbers.
so I think you nailed it. It's location. If you're in a hot location and you're selling, 1,000 pizzas a day versus a cheaper location as far as rent, but you're only selling, 150 pizzas a day, it's It's that whole balance. We're trying to
All
figure out.
right.
Yeah.
So let's talk my favorite part.
Okay.
We mentioned it a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
Let's talk budget, materials, and smart splurges. Let's say splurging because that's that's what I enjoy.
Well,
But
that's
where do
because
you
one thing I will say about you, you're the greatest at that.
Thank you.
Because I'm like, wow.
I don't know if Gennaro would be happy
Well,
about
my
that,
wife
but
is pretty good at that as well.
yes,
Yeah,
we know.
yeah, yeah. But I mean, let's
So,
face it. Your places are very sexy because of what you do to them. You know what I mean?
yeah, the
Y-
full service. I mean, that's kind of my thing. I mean, I know Gennaro loves his fast casual and the
Yeah,
Squisito stores and Vivi's, and obviously smaller is easier and they're easy to duplicate and they're easier to build and they open faster. I
and,
mean,
and
full service build outs are crazy. They could take, I mean, long term. I mean, from the time you sign a lease till the time you open could be 18 months. A
right,
Vivi's is open in 4 months.
right. Well, and that's very important to make sure you get the right TI time. You get the right money and the right before you open the business. 180 days, I would assume that's where you would
Yeah.
go. That's what I would try to do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, where should restaurant owners never cut corners? So, when we're talking budgets, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, you want to be smart, where to spend and where to save.
I
Where
would say
should you never?
design and equipment, two things that you should never cut corners on.
Yeah. Well, equipment
Yeah,
100% because, you go with a Vulcan or a Garland stove, there's big differences. So spend the money on the good equipment because I mean, here, I'll give you a perfect example. Riva Road, Squisito.
yeah.
We just redid equipment in the kitchen. Steve, we built that restaurant 25 years ago. The ovens in that restaurant are over 20 years old and we just replaced them.
Wow.
If we would have spent, and I mean, and those ovens, to do those three ovens, I think we spent initially 25, 30 grand,
Right.
maybe 35,000 for those two ovens. Those same ovens in another brand could have been 8,000. I mean, we just went through it now when we replaced them. And do you want 20 years of life or do you want 5 years of life? And then you're being nickeled and dimed with repairs and having to replace them. So, I agree with you 100%. Make smart choices, but don't cut corners that are going to be costly after you open.
Well, and there's other ways to do. There's other ways to design. I think design. I mean, I'm like you. I'm all about like the design for me will always keep me. And me as a consumer. I
Yeah.
mean, I say this all the time. When we go out to a restaurant and we sit down, the most important thing to me, Michelle, is my friends don't understand this, but it's ambiance and energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, I am all about the design. Then the food is I would say for me, it's 60% ambiance, 25% um, food, and the rest is service.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I've said this probably 3 or 4 times on this podcast over the last 6 months that I've been doing it. All my friends and people that I've known in the full service, they eat atmosphere. People like to go where it's hot and it's happening and things are great. That's why you see busy restaurants. Action creates reaction. Action creates energy. Yeah, food's great and food will bring people in, but the energy and the vibe and, that whole social media
Yeah.
energy and that brings people in and that's what people want these days.
Well,
They're all about the scene. I mean,
yeah,
that's why people eat with their phones before they even eat their food.
right. And I don't think there's a restaurant or anybody that's going to open up a restaurant that doesn't go into with, you know, with the idea of having great food. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So nobody's going in there cutting corners on food. Now, sometimes things just don't work, right? You
Well, I
know,
mean, that's with any
yeah,
business though.
yeah. Sometimes you got to have the proper food in the proper area. It goes back to that whole thing. You know, I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
yeah,
so Steve, let me ask you. So, let's kind of tie this up. Obviously, there's so much that goes into a restaurant build out, and there's no way we're going to cover it all in a 30-minute show because we're getting down to the wire now, and
right,
you and I could talk for hours.
sure,
But
absolutely,
um, before you open, I mean, how realistic one are setting grand opening dates? And then let's talk a little bit about before getting to grand opening, how that final walkthrough plays and punch list and prepping for opening day. Like, what should owners look for before they get to that final walkthrough with their GC?
Um, I guess what I would say is in the owner's position, they want to get open as soon as possible. They want to have an opening date that they can have a grand opening or a soft opening or whatever they're doing. So I think that's achievable. So long, I don't think you can. I think you need to set a grand opening with in the last month of the project. I think at that point you'll have a realistic date of where you're at.
Yeah,
And
because you really don't know when you're gonna
you,
get that final inspection
no,
too. I mean,
you
inspection
don't.
can hold you up and you might not even, and then talking soft openings versus hard openings. So, what we do a lot in the full service side is we plan for soft openings. So we have some friends and family days. We don't just plan for a hard opening. This is the date we're going to open the doors, social media, blast grand opening,
Right.
because that could always, that won't work.
Right.
I mean, you get delayed with inspections, you might not even hit that
Well, and
opening
that's
date.
the biggest thing. I think you take the last 4 weeks of the project and then you start working on a grand opening date, and then know in advance that the hardest part about getting a restaurant open is getting it open. Getting the fire marshal in, getting the
Yeah.
health department to clear you, all the stuff that's after all the permits have been cleared. You know,
Yeah, for sure.
you know
So, I mean, you're never going to believe this, but our show's coming to an
that's
end.
crazy.
This happens all the time. We get into this topic and we get heated and we start talking,
We've
and
only
it's
been
like, all right,
talking
we're
10 minutes,
done.
right?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. I
Yeah.
mean, I have a couple rapid fire quick questions for you to kind of tie up the show. But before we get there, any final pre opening advice that you would give your clients? So you've met with them, you've built out, restaurants for them before, and you're doing a new project. What advice would you give future clients about pre opening and, success stories that you've had?
What advice would I give them as far as opening the doors?
Yeah, pre-opening, from when they sign the lease to building out this space to doing their final walkthroughs and their final punch list. I mean, what's your
My
advice?
biggest advice, I would say, and it always goes back to this, is having a realistic time. Meaning, like, if I'm telling you that I'm going to have this project opened in 4 months, you should expect 5 months or something more, a little bit more realistic. I mean, yes, you can be open in 4 months, and then you can start having your soft openings if you're right on time. But keep the stress level down on the owner side, knowing that not everything's going to be perfect and you're not going to get it open. Sometimes you get it open weeks in advance, and other times you get it open in delayed times, 5 or 6 weeks later. And I
Yeah,
feel like
well,
that's where the
I will tell you, we are guilty. I don't think we've ever hit a date. Ever when we set a date. And I mean, it's from so many different things, not because we suck at what we do. We're good at what we do, but it's because, there's so many delays, the health department, holidays, supplies taking so long. There's so
weather,
many different
yeah,
wrenches.
I mean, there's just so many, there's so much involved. And as well as I do, when you build a restaurant from scratch, I mean, how many thousands and thousands of pieces do you think are going on in that project?
Yeah. Oh, a lot.
You know
A
what I mean?
lot.
And the contractor's quarterback in the project, and the owner comes in and walks the project, and oh, I want to change this, and I don't like this, or maybe we can do that. You know, well,
I'm guilty of that.
everybody is. It's just because what I see on paper, I can see it already built. What you
Well,
see,
wait, Steve, I got to stop you. I got to tell you a really quick, funny story. And then I have a couple really quick questions for you. And then we got to wrap it up. But when we were building Tuscan Prime, every day I went in there. I mean, I tortured our GC. I'm not going to lie, but I knew what my vision was and I knew what I wanted.
you nailed it.
And every time I went in there, I was like, nope, it's not going to work. Rip it out. And I think there was at one point, poor Ted, he was running the project. He looked at me and he was like, oh my God, here she comes. What are we going to
Yeah.
change? Because I mean, even
I'm guilty
certain
of that.
heights, I walked into the bathroom and wait, you got to hear this. This is really funny. So I walked in the bathroom like, this is the wrong height. I'm like, rip it out. It's wrong. Rip it out. I can't tell you how many things. So then, you know, the big Dorothea picture that we put
Yes.
on the wall that was on the back wall with her
Yes.
eating the pasta.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I walk in one day and he looks at me and he goes, all right, really? You had to put yourself on the damn wall, so you have to look at me every single day. You don't come in here enough and torture me and moving stuff. Now you're on the wall. I'm like, that's not me. I mean, but he's like, did you have to put yourself up there so I have to look at you every day to know that you're going to move something or change
That's
something?
awesome. That was awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
Anyway, so biggest construction nightmare you've ever seen in any project you've done? What's the really quick biggest construction nightmare?
I told you the car wash.
That was the
That
worst,
was the
huh?
worst. I mean, the building where the building was going, and where we imagine they literally they bought this farmland, and this farmland had a road, a 15-foot wide by 20-inch thick concrete road that went 4 miles.
Wow.
And we had to break the building. Basically, we had to break about 500, maybe 800 feet of concrete that was 18 inches. I mean, it literally took us 3 weeks to break this concrete out with the big
That's
head.
why they were $250,000 over their budget.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. What is one golden rule for building a restaurant? What's your golden rule?
Uh, getting the budget right.
Budget.
Yeah, I would say budget. That's my golden rule. Is
So we can't, so we could say budget. Is that like the
the
four-letter
number
F
one
word?
expectations of the budget, I would say, to be honest with you.
And if you were opening your own restaurant tomorrow,
Yes.
what would you do differently than most owners do? Is
Quit.
there any? What?
Quit. No, I'm just messing.
I don't know if that's
Now,
the best
I'm
answer.
teasing you. I'm teasing you. If I was to, I would say if I was to open up a restaurant tomorrow, not knowing construction, but knowing construction, I would say pick the right contractor. And the right contractor is not always the cheapest. You got to pick the contractor that you're 100% want to go hand in hand on this project with through the ups and downs, and know that you're going to get through them together.
Well,
Because
you know what,
that could be a
Steve?
nightmare. Like you said,
I agree
you can
with you
stress your
100%.
contractor out, and you're going to do that. Let's face it. You want nice things. You walk the project. Things aren't supposed to be the way they were. Tear it out. No contractor wants to hear that.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, Steve, that is our show. Thank you so much for being a guest, and everybody listening today. That's another episode of Dine and Dish. I mean, these episodes just go so fast, and we're just rolling through. It's almost February already. It's crazy. But our DMs are open. I love to hear from you. Text me, email me, DM me, restaurantdiva.com. And this will be live as always. Every Wednesday, we have a new episode, and we're going to have so many amazing topics. Next week, we're going to be talking grand opening and marketing. I'm bringing in a guru to talk about, what to do with social media and what not to do. So a lot of great topics coming up in the future. But Steve, always a pleasure. Can't wait to get together with you soon. And thank you for being on my show.
Thank you for having me. Although I would like to talk more.
We can always talk more. You can come back for another episode.
Okay, absolutely. Next time we'll
All
talk
right,
music.
and that's a wrap. Everybody have a great day. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.